Hi everyone, my name's Voxy and I am embarking on the crazy journey of turning a large 56-seater bus into a penthouse on wheels. I thought I would make this into a long series of videos because there is already so much that I have learned through my own research that I did not discover through other people's videos. Now, the first thing that's important to cover, as I'm sure I'm going to have this as the title of the video. This video is specific to Victoria, Australia. You're going to find that anywhere throughout Australia you will have different regulations as to what you must and must not do or have with regards to a motorhome. Now, one thing I recently had learned is, so the Vehicle Standards Guide number 5, which is visible on, I believe it's the National Heavy Vehicle Register website, sets a few important points of requirements for your conversion. So if you are needing to convert it specifically to a motorhome, it must have sleeping accommodation that is fixed to the vehicle. It must have storage facilities that are fixed to the vehicle. It must have cooking facilities fixed to the vehicle, and a dining table, which can be a fold-out or removable dining table, and fixed chairs. Now, upon reaching out to a local engineer down in Ballarat, there is a way around not needing to have a kitchen built in or fixed to the vehicle. Their attitude was you could easily put in a microwave, and now the cooking facilities are sorted. So in my case, what I need is essentially a computer desk for not only the computer but also the mixing gear and my photography gear. Any cooking I'm doing, I'm going to be doing outside of the vehicle. So I have no need for any of those things in the bus itself. And they seem to suggest that that is totally fine. If you can't get an exemption with NHVR or Vic Roads, that is totally fine. But I will make it known that the engineer seemed to insist that, seemed to suggest rather, that exemptions can be made by NHVR. Now, I contacted the National Heavy Vehicle Register and they said, we don't talk to wildlife, go get stuffed. So then I contacted them again and got someone else, and they had said that they don't hand out the exemptions. You need to speak with Vic Roads, or sorry, not Vic Roads, you need to speak with Department of Transport Victoria. So I have since reached out to them and am currently waiting on a response. But pending that, either way, I know that there is a path forward without needing to meet the exact requirements of what defines a motorhome. My use case is different to your use case. And I feel that connecting with an engineer before you begin the project, before you even purchase a bus, is going to be one of the most valuable things that you can do. Establish a relationship. Everything's going to be pretty smooth from there. So I explained my situation, which is recovering homeless. I've got a caravan and I'm wanting to have my forever home on wheels. But my needs are different from most people's needs. And so they offered a few really excellent alternatives for some of those requirements. So, one thing else that I had learned is that according to National Heavy Vehicle Register, if you remove all of the seats from the bus, bar, I think they may have said 3, they may have said 4, I can't remember the exact number, but they said it changes the classification from being a bus to being a heavy rigid. In my case, a heavy rigid because of the sheer size and weight of the bus that I'll be buying. And they said that it's a very different world. Once you have it registered as a heavy rigid, there can be concerns with the rear overhang of the vehicle. If I'm not mistaken, that the wheelbase and then the back of the bus, if the back of the bus overhang from axle to the back is greater than 60% of the wheelbase, or is greater than, I believe it may be 3.4 or 3.5 meters, then you actually need to apply for a permit everywhere you drive this vehicle, every time you drive this vehicle. And they seem to suggest around the $70 mark for that permit. So every time you move the vehicle, you'd have to apply for that. You would be given specific routes that you can and that you can't do. And they said that really doesn't affect most bus operators because they already have fixed routes. But in your case, being that it'll be a home, it's really something to pay attention to. So that's quite important. So there's a lot that I'm learning so far, but I just wanted to make this first video to kick off this amazing project and start sharing all of the fantastic things that I'm learning so far. I also want to say one more thing. When you are choosing a bus, you really want to be mindful of, can you get parts for this bus now and far into the future? I've spoken with a truck and bus mechanic, a lovely friend of mine, and he has suggested that you can actually make things work by retrofitting parts from one bus to another, but it can get very expensive or a little bit complicated. There are some parts which are actually not too expensive. For example, airbag suspension is very different with a bus than it is on a car. I'm aware that some cars for a single airbag and strut assembly is $3,000 a corner, whereas on a bus you're talking maybe $300 or less for the rubber bag, the correct price that it should be. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury with cars, but trucks are a different world altogether. So just be mindful of that. And another thing to be mindful of is certain buses do have inherent rust problems. Now, here in Australia, and I'm sure this is the case around the world, is buses are actually not necessarily built by Scania or by Volvo. They provide the chassis, they provide the transmission and engine builds. So, you know, if you've requested when you've bought the bus new that it should have an Allison transmission and a Volvo whatever engine, that's what it's got. Here's the chassis rail. It's now up to you, the bus company, the coach building company, to build the entire outside of the bus. And some buses are going to be pot riveted together, others are, you know, a whole different variety of build types and qualities. And some buses are just known to be rust buckets. Another thing, while I remember it, is air conditioning systems with buses, if that is something that's important to you. I believe it is the, test my memory here, I think Carrier, the old Carrier systems, and I believe it was maybe William Carrier that had invented the air conditioner or something to that effect. Those systems in buses can be notoriously painful to work with. They just die, they've got electrical problems or leaks and whatnot. Do your research when it comes to what is going to be a good investment long term and what is going to work out to be a bit more expensive or a bit more than you initially wanted to chew. There's going to be more that I discover along the way, but I want to say thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next part in the series where I learn even more about what absolute pain and agony I am going to be putting myself through in making this a reality. There's also going to be a video, I think, discussing the pros and cons of going for a bus versus going for a caravan. And that is most prevalent to me as someone who now has a caravan as their forever home, but has realized their caravan is far too small for what they actually need. And there's just a few considerations to be put for the pros and cons with that, and for what you're actually getting yourself into if you do get a caravan instead of a bus. Anyway, again, thank you for listening, and hope to catch you on the next one. Any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will answer them and do my research for the next video. See ya.